Okay.
It is.
You know that?
I offered them to you, and you said no, so now.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Hey, Dave. You can stay. We'll just want to make sure you're here, ready to go. All right, excellent. All right. All ready? All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation. Pastor Felton, welcome.
Mayor, thank you. If I can have a moment of personal privilege,
Please.
just for a second, to take this opportunity to invite everyone to our second annual Interfaith Thanksgiving service for Fountain Hills, which will be on Sunday night at 5 p.m. at the Fountains United Methodist. And we'll have representatives from the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Buddhist community. We'll even have Bishop Freeman from the LDS community joining us this year as well. So it's a celebration for all, and you're all encouraged to come. I'll leave some flyers on the back table.
Thank you. Thank you.
Theologian Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that'll be enough. So that's the spirit in which I offer this invocation. With the crisp coolness of this autumn night, we are grateful. With the opportunity to come together and work for the betterment of our town, we are grateful. For those committed people gathered here, leaders and citizens, we are grateful. May your spirit of gratitude be with all of us as we embrace opportunities to serve. And be with all of us in the coming week as many of us travel and many of us gather together with family and friends to express our gratitude at Thanksgiving. May we know your presence, not only in the proceedings tonight, but as we go from this place. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Felton from the Methodist Church. Roll call, please, Janice.
Mayor Schlem,
Here.
Councilmember Contino, Councilmember Leger,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hanson, Councilmember Archambault,
Here.
Councilmember Dickey. Here. Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Want to make a couple announcements. There are up some community events coming up. They're on the PowerPoint as well. Of course, we have our Fighting Falcons playing Friday night or Saturday, 7 o'clock. Come out to Paradise Valley High School and root them on in their semifinal state tournament football game versus Sholo. Tough match, but if they win, they move on to the state championship in Flagstaff the following Saturday evening up at the NAU Dome. What's that called? I should know what the Dome is. I went there. Anyway, the Dome up at NAU the following Saturday. But this Saturday at 7. Also, our neighbors at Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation are celebrating the Orem Dam Victory Days this coming weekend, all weekend long. So check out their website or get in contact with Fort McDowell if you wish to get some information that's open to the public. And then Thursday, of course, Thanksgiving. We have our turkey trot in town, 6 o'clock start. Our 6 o'clock sign-in, 7 o'clock start, 6:45, somewhere around there. And then, of course, the ever-popular Thanksgiving Day parade at 9 o'clock, just a great community event to bring your whole family down to or come for the first time, 9 o'clock along Saguaro Boulevard and the entire downtown for the parade. And Saturday, December 5th, we'll have another opportunity to make this announcement, but we have our 20th anniversary celebration starting at 3 o'clock, and then followed by that, the Stroll in the Glow, the Chamber of Commerce along the Avenue of the Fountain. And, of course, everyone's encouraged to come to both of those events. And as Pastor Felton from the Fountains United Methodist Church mentioned, Thanksgiving is this next week as well. And there is the event that he's putting on Sunday, the 22nd at 5 o'clock, the Interfaith Thanksgiving service at the Methodist Church. And then on Tuesday, the 24th at 7, there's the Community Thanksgiving service at the Church of Ascension. I believe that's put on by the Ministerial Association here in town. And then Saturday, the 21st at 4 o'clock, there's a prayer gathering at the Fountain Park Performance Pad. So lots of opportunities to get involved in the community, and don't forget to cheer on the Falcons so they can get to the state championship this coming Saturday. Any other announcements? Councilmember Dickey.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to let everyone know that I had the opportunity and the honor again to represent Fountain Hills for the Running and Winning program, which is something that is with this two groups that I'm with, the American Association of University Women and Business and Professional Women. And I was able to do it in 06 and 07. We did it at Coronado High School with young girls there, and then this time it was at Scottsdale Community College. And Running and Winning is a nationally recognized program. It educates young women about leadership and public service and electoral process. A lot of times we get good feedback from these young women saying that they discover their own leadership qualities through that. And unselfish public service. I wanted to just mention one woman who was there who was an exchange student from another country, and she mentioned that it's literally life-threatening to run for office as a woman in her country, and her mother is actually fearful because she came here to learn and would like to go back and do something like that. So I think you learn lessons every place you go. They learned a little bit from me, and I certainly learned from them. So I just wanted to let you know that I represented Fountain Hills, and it was very successful.
Oh, good. Thank you. Next item, we'll go to some presentations. We're going to have an overview of our town prosecutorial skilled folks here. Mark Iacovino, welcome. Come on forward. Do you have a PowerPoint or
No,
presentation?
I'm a little bit old school
All right,
when it
that's
comes
fine.
to that sort
You
of
don't
thing.
do PowerPoints in court?
But, I haven't quite mastered
That
that.
wouldn't go over well with the judge.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and tonight a very few members of the community. My name is Mark Iacovino, and I am your town prosecutor. I have been the town prosecutor here for nearly 20 years. That puts me in a very small group of very fortunate people who can say we have served this town virtually since the beginning. Tonight, I have promised Bev that I will keep my remarks inside of 5 minutes, and I'm going to do my best to stick to that. And I also apologize because the change of season has brought upon me a fearsome cold, and I'm going to try not to sniffle through this as best I can. I'm very grateful for the opportunity and the invitation to come and speak to you folks tonight, because it's a terrific opportunity to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me and to reintroduce myself to those of you who do. I want to tell you a little bit about the office, what we do, and how we do it. Again, I'm going to try to do this briefly to the extent that that is possible. My office is made up of 2 attorneys and 1 staff person. We are responsible for the prosecution of all criminal misdemeanors, criminal matters, town code matters, as well as juvenile cases that are filed here in the town's municipal court. Now, over the years, in addition to that, we have served many other functions as well, including law enforcement training, advising law enforcement on case-specific questions as they arise, drafting and reviewing proposed code amendments that impact the town's criminal justice system, and have had the opportunity to see the code and the system here in Fountain Hills mature over the years into what now, and has been for quite some time, truly a model court system. I think it's something that we can all be very, very proud of, and something that I'm very proud to have an opportunity to be a small part of. What do we do? What do we handle? Our court here, the municipal court, is a limited jurisdiction court. This is not a felony court that we operate here. We are not dealing with bank robbers and rapists and murderers and burglars and that sort of thing. The county takes care of all of those cases. We handle misdemeanor cases, both criminal misdemeanors, criminal traffic, and the other types of things I mentioned. This includes things like theft cases, shoplifting cases, assault cases, disorderly conduct, bar fights, that type of thing as well, criminal damage, graffiti, trespass, violation of court orders, false reporting to police officers, and a frankly disturbing number of domestic violence cases. On the criminal traffic side of things, that makes up a large part of the court's caseload. DUI cases, extreme DUI cases, the new super extreme DUI cases, reckless driving, racing on the roadways, leaving the scene of an accident, driving on a suspended license, driving with suspended plates, those types of things. We've handled a wide variety of town code cases, everything from zoning violations, building code violations, issues involving outdoor storage, mobile home parking, trailer parking, and of course parking dogs as well. Another area of cases that we handle, this afternoon is an example, once a month we handle our own juvenile cases here in Fountain Hills. We're one of the few jurisdictions in the county that handles its own juvenile cases locally. I think that too is something to be proud of. I think it makes a lot more sense to deal with our kids locally here rather than sending them in to the county system where they often get lost in the numbers. Here we have the time, the resources, and the opportunity to deal with these kids in a way that we certainly hope is meaningful. And certainly our odds of making a positive change in those lives is much greater if we handle those cases here in a more appropriate way than would be the case if they were sent into the big system downtown. I want to talk a little bit about our philosophy. I have, over the years, not only served as a prosecutor here and in other communities as well, I have also engaged in private practice of law, criminal defense in many, many courts around the valley, probably all of them, most of them around the state at one time or another. And I think here in Fountain Hills, we are really very close to being unique because of our philosophies. First of all, and I think very importantly, we need to remember who our defendants are. Again, this is a misdemeanor court, and while it is certainly true that we have our fair share of serious bad guys who need to be dealt with in a very serious fashion, by and large, our clientele are members of our community. These are our neighbors. These are our neighbors' kids who have screwed up or messed up or done something, been accused of something that's brought them into the court. I think it's very, very important that we keep sight of that, and we try very hard to do that. Once these folks have come through the system and their cases are resolved, they're going to continue to be members of our community. With that in mind, we treat all defendants with respect and dignity, regardless of what it is they might be accused of. We try very hard to look at each case individually, and to the extent that we can, try to identify what dysfunction it is in that person's life that has caused them to engage in behavior that has brought them into our court. And we tried our best with the tools we have available to us to address that. I think that that individualized approach is very, very important. I do not view the criminal justice system as a one-size-fits-all system. And the sad truth around Maricopa County is that most prosecutorial agencies have adopted one-size-fits-all approaches to prosecution. I find that very disturbing and troubling when I am working in those courts and don't want to fall in line with that way of thinking. One-size-fits-all works great if every case is the same and every defendant is the same. But in 25 years of doing this type of work, I've never known that to be the case. So we try very hard to look at these cases on an individual basis and try to address them on an individual basis. Another philosophy that we have lived by for many, many years here in Fountain Hills, we bear in mind, as a prosecutor, I have an ethical obligation to see that justice is done. The goal is not to rack up convictions. The goal is not to put notches on my belt. The goal is not to generate revenue. The goal, the mandate, ethically, is to see that justice is done, to see that cases are disposed of in a fair way. Now, that being true, I have always believed that that means both fairness to the defendant, and it also means fairness to the community. Part of fairness to the community dictates that people who are convicted of crimes should, to the greatest extent possible, be required to bear the cost of the system that has to deal with their conduct. And we've tried our best to live up to that and require that type of contribution from people who come in and tax the system so that those who go about their lives in a law-abiding fashion don't have to bear that burden alone. Finally, it has always been our goal and philosophy to provide this town with the highest quality of criminal prosecution for the absolute best, lowest price that can possibly be provided. And I think we've been successful in doing that. I have sent to you in your packets a brief memo regarding the economics of the town prosecutor's office. And it lays out for you what these services cost the town and what revenues are generated by the cases that we are directly involved with. I'm again, while emphasizing that generating revenue is not our function, nor is it our goal, again, fairness to the community, I believe, dictates that we keep that in mind and try our best to defray the costs of operating the system. Looking at the numbers from the past 12 months, I think they're impressive. I'm pleased with what we've been able to accomplish in that regard. If any of you have any questions regarding not only the numbers and the economics of the system that are spelled out in that memo, or questions about anything else having to do with the prosecution function, I welcome you to call me and would invite each of you to come if you wish and see what we do. It's interesting. Sometimes it's rewarding. Sometimes it's heartbreaking. Sometimes it's maddening. But we go on and we do it, and we've been, I think, like as I say, we are very fortunate, myself and Ken Holmes, who is the attorney who works with me, very, very fortunate to work in a court that has been held up as a model municipal court for many, many years. And certainly we hope that that continues along the same vein into the future. I thank you all very much for this opportunity. I don't think I exceeded 5 minutes by too much. If any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. And if not, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Our Mr. Archambault, our council member Archambault.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, we talk about how a lot of the people that go through that court system, it's a misdemeanor court, and you know, they're not hardened criminals. I was curious as to, and especially I'm going to relate this into the economy that we're into now. I was curious as to how quick, if you got a first-time offender, say they did a shoplifting for some goofy reason, who knows, maybe it was a dare, but they do an offense and they plead guilty to it and get community service or do it. How fast do you guys try to expunge that record so that it doesn't show up as a black mark, say they should be looking for a job?
Well, that's a good question. It's a question that I've probably answered 5 or 6 times today as we talk to defendants across the hall, especially the young kids. The expungement process, loosely referred to as expungement, is actually called setting aside a judgment. It is a process that is available in misdemeanor cases. We certainly advise defendants, and like I say, I certainly go out of my way to advise the young defendants particularly that this is something they want to remember to do. It's incumbent upon the defendant to request that. In our court, and this is a policy of the court, as a rule of thumb, the court likes to see about a year go by before entertaining that request. The idea, of course, being, number one, let's see if this person has satisfied the terms of their sentence in a timely way. And secondly, have they been able to keep out of trouble? assuming that a person can pass those two hurdles, the odds are very, very good that Judge Armbruster will grant that request to set aside the judgment. It is important. While we use the 1 year as a rule of thumb, that is not carved in stone. If somebody has a particular urgent need, for example, we've had cases where somebody might come in and say, look, I was convicted of this 4 months ago, and I've served my sentence already, that's all taken care of, and now I've got this job interview for this terrific job, but I'm not going to get it if this conviction is here. In a circumstance like that, certainly we're open to letting that set-aside go through more rapidly.
Okay, so roughly we're talking about a year if they go through, do their service to the community. I'm assuming you guys often give them service hours to go out and do, along with probably a fine restitution they have to pay back. But essentially in about a year, they can come back to the courts and petition to have that record set aside.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Now, are you alluding to minors in this case?
This applies both to kids and adults as well. Kids have a little extra benefit, Mr. Mayor, under the law in Arizona when they turn 18, because juvenile records are now public records, just like adult records are. They didn't used to be. When the legislature made that change, making them public records, they kind of added a benefit for kids. With misdemeanor cases, when a kid turns 18, they have the ability to request not only that their conviction be set aside, but that the record of their case actually be physically destroyed, which certainly takes it a step further than simply the set-aside. So we make sure that the kids are aware that they have that opportunity when they turn 18, and with regard to adults, generally make them aware as well that they have the opportunity to set aside.
And the infraction I hear about that other kids are concerned about, or friends of kids that are cited with underage consumption, are those cases that you see here?
Mr. Mayor, yes, they are. That makes up a large number of our juvenile cases. Those are cases that I take very seriously. I zero in on those underage drinking cases. I think it's safe to assume that for every time a 17, 18, 19-year-old, for each time one of these kids gets caught consuming alcohol, I work on the assumption that that probably represents a much larger number of times that they didn't. Yes, we're very concerned about that. I think that's one area where we have a true opportunity to really make a difference in these lives and turn these kids around. We have an approach with a first offense, second offense, third offense, and explain that in detail to the kids so they understand if they're not listening to us the first time, if the education class that we require them to go to is something that they're going to ignore, they need to know what's going to happen if they come back a second time. Generally speaking, I'm very happy to say we don't have a lot of repeat offenders. Whatever it is we're doing seems to be working.
So you're getting across that the underage consumption is quite serious.
I view it as a very serious issue because very simply, I believe, based on my experience with criminal prosecution and defense, that probably, easily, 85% of all crimes are alcohol-related, one way or another. That's a huge, huge, huge number of cases. If we can intervene in that young life at age 17 or 18 or 19, and if we can get that individual to stop and think and exercise better judgment with regard to alcohol use, I think that's probably the greatest contribution we can make to the security of the community.
Yeah, and is what level of offense, or are there different levels for the underage consumption?
Mr. Mayor, they are all classified the same by law, Class 1 misdemeanor.
Okay.
Again, our approach is different depending on whether or not the child has previous convictions from our jurisdiction or any other jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Mark.
Our next presentation is from Ms. Chandler. She's the regional coordinator at the Northeast Maricopa County, Arizona Early Childhood Development and Health Board, and she's going to talk to us about First Things First program here in Fountain Hills. Nice to see you again, Hazel.
Yeah, it's nice to see you.
Do you need some help on the PowerPoint, or
I think
you got
I'm
it?
okay.
There, you got it.
Just give me 1 second. But do we have the control?
Clicker, yeah, we do. Here it is, Hazel.
Oh, okay. The last time I saw Mayor Slum was at our a publicity event we had last spring, and he sat outside in heat for an hour or more in a suit. And so it's a lot cooler here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was nice to have you there.
Make sure you speak in the microphone so everybody can hear you on
Mayor
television.
Schlem and council members, I'd like to tell you about the impact that First Things First is having on your community. As some of you probably know, First Things First grew out of a state initiative, Prop 203, that was passed in 2006, that set aside a dedicated funding source to fund programs for children birth through 6. This came out of a long journey. Nadine Basha and others were part of that journey. I first met Nadine back in 1979, so you can kind of tell how long that journey was, of people that knew that if we invested in children at a very young age, that we wouldn't be talking about as many kids in the court system and when they became teenagers. And we, went through many, many years trying to get our state to build a early childhood system, and that did not happen. And so finally, a group of dedicated people went to the voters, and they did set aside a dedicated funding source for this. It, as I said, tobacco tax, and supports it. It passed with a statistically landslide. It was 52% of the voters, so it's very, very much supported. Across the board, people understood the importance of early childhood. Most people are parents, and we all know that our kids don't come with an owner's manual. And many of us made some really serious mistakes with our kids while we were learning. And I think the voters came out loud and clear that they needed help with that. They needed help to learn how to do parenting in the right way. It had strong bipartisan support as well. Our mission is to increase access and quality of the early childhood development and health system in Arizona, so that we ensure every child enters school healthy and ready to learn. Health is just as important as early education in ensuring children enter school ready to learn. If they're not healthy, they are not able to function well in the classroom. Why early childhood? Well, every study you look at is showing that this is our biggest bang for our buck. Every dollar we invest in early childhood returns, depending on which study you're looking at, somewhere between 7 and 17%. So if you invest $1 in early childhood, we're going to save $12 to $17 either in increased productivity of people or remedial type programs. This particularly, we're using 12%, but there's studies of all across the board of different amounts. But every study says that investing in early childhood learning reduces crime rates, teenage pregnancies, welfare job training costs, special education. It increases school success, graduation rates, workforce readiness, community engagement, et cetera, et cetera. One of our members of our regional council is Bill Myers, your school board superintendent, or your school superintendent. And Bill reminds me often that when they get a child entering into kindergarten that is not ready, that is below what they call benchmark, that his chances of getting that child above benchmark by third grade is only 20%. 80% of those kids never reach benchmark by third grade if they enter kindergarten behind. This is huge. These are the children that we're spending many, many dollars on special education and tutors and all those other things to get them successful in school. And most of their brain development has already happened by the time they enter school, and to turn that around is very difficult. Another interesting statistic is that we plan for prison beds by the number of kids that are below benchmark at third grade. So if we lose a child and they're not ready for school when they enter kindergarten, we might as well be planning for prison beds based on, our prison cells based on those numbers, because our chances of turning it around with a child is greatly decreased. I'm going to I put these in because I wanted you to see them, but I'm going to just kind of go through it real quickly. The money from First Things First was set up to provide an ongoing revenue stream for funding programs. One of the things that we were taxed with was to go through a planning stage to make sure that we put enough money in the bank so that the programs could be operational over a long period of time. You may see in the newspaper that First Things First has $320-some million in the bank. Well, this year we're committed to the community for about $150 million, but the difference between that is money that's carried forward to allow for the declines in the tobacco tax, so that we don't put a program in place and then a year from now say, oh, oops, sorry, we can't support it. We need to make sure that we have an ongoing funding source going forward to support these programs. The initiative was very specific, that only 10% could be used for administrative costs. The state board, which is appointed by the governor, has control of 9%, and the rest, the other 81%, is under control of regional councils that operate in the community. Our regional council in this area is the Northeast Maricopa Regional Partnership Council. We serve Fountain Hills, Carefree, Cave Creek, Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, and Fort McDowell, Yavapai Nation, and Rio Verde. I think they have 3 kids up there, or 4, a very small amount. I'm not going to go into all these. I'm going to skip through this because I said I'd keep this. But there's 31 councils across the state. They're appointed with representation from business, education, parents, early care and education, philanthropy, community members, and if there's a tribe within the nation or within the region, a tribal representative. The ones from this area are Bill Myers, who's school superintendent, and Gary Lutzenheiser, who is the education director for Fort McDowell, are the 2 from this area on the council.
Hazel, maybe we can go to the benefits for the town directly then.
Yep.
Slide,
Yeah.
since we're short on time.
We have a number of programs that are currently now operating, started in July here in this community. One of the first ones, which is part of statewide funding, but the region council has put additional money into it, is Quality First, and that's a quality improvement program for your child care centers. As many of us know, child care centers across Arizona are very, very poor quality in many cases. There's some very good ones too, but there are some of them that leave a lot to be desired. And this is a program to help those centers improve their quality. We have 2 right here in Fountain Hills, Maxwell Preschool and Here We Grow, that are participating, and Fort McDowell Child Care Center is also participating in this area. They receive coaching, assessment coaching, teach scholarships for their teachers to go to college to improve their educational skills. They receive capital improvement money to like build a playground, add learning materials, curriculum materials, various aspects that we will be investing in these centers over a 3-year period to bring them up to high-quality centers, we hope, by the time we're finished. We're starting a pre-kindergarten program in conjunction with Fountain Hills School District to allow low-income families to have the opportunities to have pre-kindergarten in this community. Only families that can pay for the services receive pre-kindergarten. So this is a way to reach those families that wouldn't normally be able to have pre-kindergarten. We have Healthy Steps and Healthy Families, which are home visitation programs. Healthy Steps is a combination of home visitation and support through the physician's offices to ensure that the child gets and the family gets the support necessary for the child to succeed. And Healthy Families is a more intensive program for the most high risk. And of course, we have the home visiting program on Fort McDowell that we're funding. We will be funding mental health consultants in the child care centers, short-term crisis intervention for families. If they've got a child that hasn't slept through a night for months and the parents are at their wits' end, they can't go to work because their kids aren't sleeping. This is a program that can go in on a short-term basis, work with that family and help them find solutions so that their child will sleep or their child will eat or they won't be throwing a temper tantrum every time they try to take the child out into the public. This is a really exciting program. We kind of jokingly say it's Nanny 911, but it is short-term help for these families that are putting their own children the children are at risk because the parents are at their wits' end and trying to handle the behavioral problem. We did provide emergency scholarships on a short-term basis to several of the child care centers in this area to help families that lost their DES scholarships or did not qualify for the DES scholarships. And we are going to implement in January some additional scholarships that will go to your Quality First centers. Each of your centers will have 4 scholarships, and we hope that it'll help meet some of the needs of families that can't get assistance with child care costs any other way. And it'll also support the centers in being able to continue to stabilize their enrollment for so that they can become high-quality centers. We also provided some emergency food boxes in this area. So overall, you know, we've been a real economic stimulus package for your community. I don't know exactly what the dollar amount that's come in to the community is, but it's probably, if we added it all up, we're probably looking at for probably $400,000 or $500,000 that has impacted your community. We're going to continue to be here. God willing, you know, we'll continue to support programs on an ongoing basis, we hope, for at least the next 10 years. In the end, the reduction of inequality among young children and providing all children the greater opportunity to develop should be seen as both a moral imperative and a social and economic investment. And I really appreciate you're allowing me to talk to you about it, and hopefully we can continue to keep you posted on what's going on and work closely with you going forward.
Thank you,
Any
Hazel.
questions?
Thanks. Just one for me. What department do you roll up into?
The governor's office.
It goes directly to the
Yeah.
governor's office. Thanks.
Yeah,
Any other
yeah.
questions, Councilmember Dickey?
Mayor, thank you. Thanks so much for coming. One of the things I wanted to mention was in the old days, I guess, we had Head Start, which was for kids that were basically at risk. And I think part of the thinking behind this was that we saw the effects that Head Start was having on those kids and thought, well, gee, we could have that effect on everybody. And so that was a result of a lot of research and time. So this isn't something that just started in 2006. Something else that you said struck me was many years ago I saw he was like a big, tough prison warden guy from, it was either Georgia or Louisiana, and he said, and it was, some news show or something, that you can tell by age 6. And that just was amazing to me. It's not supposed to sound like, well, then you can never change it, but it was amazing that, here's somebody that's not, you wouldn't consider it, a kindergarten teacher or something like that, would actually said that at that young of an age, you can almost tell, and taking steps to do something about it. And about the funding, it comes from tobacco tax, so obviously everybody hopes on one end that this funding does diminish. So that's
Yeah.
why I think it's...
That's why it's so important for us to set some money aside.
Exactly. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. That was a really good point. One of the things that they found is when they did a survey, and they've done it in prisons all across the nation, when they do a survey in the prisons, they find that almost without exception, the children have experienced traumatic episodes somewhere around 2 or 3. They also found that the kids usually never ever were successful in school. They entered school not ready, and they struggled to keep up all through school. Many of them drop out of school because they're just so frustrated because school, that it does not come easy for them. And one of the things that's across the board, and we're one of the last states to get universal pre-kindergarten, but universal pre-kindergarten records show that the success rates in schools just skyrocket. Up 80% of kids that have a year pre-kindergarten before kindergarten are at benchmark when they enter kindergarten. They're ready to learn. They're ready to participate in the classroom. So this is the best investment we can make in our future, and the future of Arizona, and we can develop kids that'll be strong global competitors.
Hazel, thanks for coming out, and thank you very much specifically for being aware and proactive to support the businesses and centers out here in Fountain Hills. So,
It's a real
thank you.
pleasure. I love to be out
Thanks.
here. Thanks.
Thank you, Hazel. Anyone from the public, Janice?
Mayor, no one wishes to speak.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. We're going to remove item number 6 from the consent agenda, place it on the regular agenda for a modest change. Can we get a...
We approve the consent agenda without item 6?
do we have a
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dickey?
Aye.
Mayor Schlum?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Contino? Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Ashenbaugh?
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, on to the regular agenda. We'll talk about item 6 first. Consideration of special event liquor license application submitted by the American Legion Post 58 for purpose of Pony Express fundraiser, and scheduled on Friday, January 29th. And Councilmember Dickey's helping applicant through here. They made a error to an address. Correct, Councilmember Hanson. Why do I do that? Vice Mayor even I missed. Thank you for helping them through this.
Sure, this is just a housekeeping measure, and we just took it off the consent so the record could show that we were revising the address to 16837 East Parkview because this would be different than the item that had been posted on the website.
Very good.
So I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Anyone from public? No, nobody in public. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. On to number 10, the regular agenda, report on amendment to the annual landscape contract with Mariposa Landscape, Arizona, Inc., in the amount of $104,608 pursuant to the Fountain Hills Town Code, Chapter 3, Section 3-3-4, Emergency Purchases Procedure. Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Hopefully my voice will hold out tonight, and so
Another one.
maybe I'll talk less for a change.
Good pages.
On August 21st, 2009, Nichols & Sons Landscaping ceased to perform services under their existing contract with the town. On September 8, 2009, staff was notified that the existing landscape maintenance contract was no longer in force, and our existing contractor had filed for bankruptcy. During this interim period, staff had support from the street department, facilities, Parks and Rec staff to provide as many hours as possible away from their everyday tasks. As a measure to maintain the beauty of our community, staff requested emergency services under the Fountain Hills Town Code, Chapter 3, Section 334, Emergency Services Procurement. As part of the town code, the town manager and the Public Works Director met with Mayor Schlum, and Mayor authorized the staff to move forward with the purchasing of these services. Since that time, staff has met with various contractors to obtain proposals for these services, which included local and valley-wide contractors and an existing vendor currently under the town's Parks and Rec Department. At this time, I want to share with you a little bit before I move on with that report. Some of the valley contractors, some of them called us, some of them we called. Sage Landscaping was one that we have seen 15, 20 years ago in this town. We worked here and maintained the medians years ago. Southwest Landscape, groundskeepers who have been on many projects as we've moved through these landscape contracts, and yet have never been awarded a contract. So we were very interested in them. K Contracting, you may recall that K Contracting was doing the wash cleanup for us, and they did all of that last year. This year, we're not in that business, but hope to get back into it. Again, we also received other miscellaneous phone calls regarding the landscape maintenance. Local contractors that we talked to, Rambo and Sons. Roger was very open to discussing, what the scope of work was that we were performing. We talked to Landcon Incorporated. We talked to Town and Country Landscape, and we actually talked to Greg's Dump Truck Service, who said, what can I do to help out? And so we've had a relationship there that we talked about for the future and different things that are going on with the town and how we might best be served by them with different things that we're doing with the downsizing. Let me proceed with this. After additional discussion with Mariposa regarding the necessary services, it was determined that this vendor would be the best selection and that we have a requisition written that would take us to the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2010. During this time period, staff would research the particulars of in-house and outsourcing for fiscal year 10-11. It should also be noted that our existing budget for this fiscal year will not be exceeded. In fact, the amount will be below the original budget amount as stated for fiscal year 9-10. In case you're wondering what makes up this $104,608, the three-man crew that we normally have for these tasks would work approximately 1,304 maintenance crew hours, which is a total of $89,976. Combined with the two-man irrigation crew, we find that we still have many areas out there that require maintenance. If you think about it in the way that a lot of these irrigation systems are anywhere from 25 to 35 years old, they require a lot of maintenance and care. The expenditure there is 248 irrigation crew hours for a dollar amount of $14,632. I just want to say that, this is a stopgap measure. This is something that we feel will help us get through. We look to start writing an RFP in January and February. We hope to work with the Parks and Rec Department. We're looking to work with the Fountain Hills Unified School District on a better contract for the future of Fountain Hills. And we'll combine those scopes of work for that. So the concerns, lastly, that we wanted to move forward with was we had a lot of concern. We were seeing a lot of line of sight disappearing at intersections and along the medians where we were getting a lot of growth on the shrubs on that lower level as well as the trees with low-hanging branches. So that was a concern. We were getting calls about trash and things that we just couldn't keep up with. So it was our goal with all of this to try to minimize the liability for the town and move forward with this maintenance agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on this report.
All right, thanks, Tom. Let's see here. We have language. Oh, this is just a report. We don't need to approve this. Thank you, because I've already signed off, or we've signed off on it. Any questions from staff or to staff or concerns? Councilmember Ashambo.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, you mentioned line of sight issues. You're talking about the new branches and the growth that happens at the base of the trees and how they grow up and start.
Mayor and Council, mostly we're getting growth actually coming off the ground on shrubs that are blossoming out. We went 3 months without any maintenance at all, and we were in the heavy growing period. So we're seeing things at intersections that we would normally maintain through medians. But you're right, the hanging branches as well is one of the things that we do, along with the cooperation of the street department, to take care of any stop signs that might be blocked, any advance notice street signs, and any street signs at the intersections as well.
You talked, Tom, thank you, Tom, but you talked extensively with a lot of local contractors. Was there not an opportunity there, or did you just think that staff, the help that you were getting from street maintenance, parks and recs, just wasn't going to get on top of it, and it was going to get away from us?
Mayor and Council, we just couldn't stay in front of it, and we just, there's 58 acres of medians in order for us to maintain, and it just, was more than we could handle, even with the support that we received from the other staff.
So are the companies that you mentioned earlier, Sage Landscaping, Southwest Landscaping, Rambo and Sons, Landcon, Town and Country, are they any of those interested maybe in bidding it for next year, or have they expressed anything like that?
They said that they would like to be included and be called when that RFP comes out. They would like to be involved in that process, and there are a lot of people out there that need to have work. The main thing is that this is not a task that's for someone with just a pickup and a shovel, and you have to have the right equipment for this work. And when we talk to them and explain to them about the scope of work, some people just say, I just can't purchase that type of equipment now. I wouldn't be able to meet that scope of work. And so, but Mariposa, after we talked to them thoroughly about this situation, we're very comfortable with that.
Tom, I know that you guys do a lot of, you realize a lot of savings. You're always looking to pony up like we did with Cox on a lot of the, that we saw recently. We saved 34,000, 28,000, or was it 34,000? I can't remember which one it was. $28,000 by Cox allowing us to lay our conduit in their trenches. Do we know what we've paid Nichols and Sons so far? I know they started the contract, but what I'm really trying to drill down on is what is the net savings?
I talked to Julie about that. She wants to give the number on that as what we've spent so far. My number was much higher than hers, but the contract was $155,000, and I believe, how much have we spent to date? 19,000 to date, and so we should have a significant savings here. My first estimate was $7,000, but it's
Yeah.
well beyond that. And plus the fact that we can, we can look at how we're doing, we can consider level of service to the point where maybe we don't need 5 days of service, maybe we only need 3. I think we need to really take a hard look at this and see where we could maybe not be so manicured and be more in a native setting for some of these plants and shrubs. But obviously, in certain areas, we have to be careful, again, with line of sight.
So again, this contract's just to kind of get us through the rest of this year, so that staff has some breathing room, time to go out and rebid it. I think then with the numbers you just threw out at me, my calculation's about $35,000 in savings.
Mayor and council could be that
Somewhere around
much,
there.
yes.
Maybe a little more if we don't spend the 104.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess I know where Councilman Cantino got his $55,000 that he talked about, $155,000 that he talked about in the paper. I just wanted to try to clarify that out because I thought that was a misquote. There was another question that I had, and it kind of relates to this. Councilman Cantino was talking about, he counted 60 outside contractors, and I'm trying to figure out where he got that number from. Do you guys have any idea?
Mayor and council, typically, there's roughly, if you were to look in the phone book to see the people that are in landscape, I believe there's around 12 to 15. There's also a lot of landscape designers. We went through that phone book as well, and we went through all of our records on people that had bid previously, looked at those people. Some of them are out of business, some are not. There's a ton of people in the valley. So, yeah, there's people all over. There's people that are just starting their own business because they've left a business that they were in. And, of course, you have to look at those qualifications as well, and do they have the proper equipment?
Well, we're also looking to try to get basically the best bang for our buck since we're spending public funds. We don't want to, just overspend or how do I want to say that? We don't want to foolishly just spend the money. We want to get the best bang for our buck and give the services that residents are requiring.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, my question's on cost. I think you've covered it. You talked about how much you think we're going to save. And I would imagine, as we are with most things in the budget, and as we go in and understand the economy is affecting us to a greater degree, as we get into each year, last year and this year, and probably the following year, we try to budget for the right amount and the amount we think we have to spend, and to maintain our town the way the citizens would like to see it. But as times go, we tend to crank those down a bit as far as the dollars spent. And I know there's innovations talked about from our town manager around incorporating the Adopt a Streets and trying to unfold more of the things you talked about, partnering with the school district. So I expect there'll be savings, a need to save more. And I know our agreements, such as this one, have cause to cancel for convenience if the need be, or to work with the vendor on ensuring that we stay within our budget. I know there's ways to save money, and this is kind of like a worst case contract here. And I understand the need to make sure we had somebody there if there was some major leaks in the landscaping, the irrigation systems, and the line of sight issues, to make sure we had a contract in place so we'd have some professionals to call on. So the safety part I understand, but Mariposa, we've contracted with them in the past, have we not?
Well, yes, Mayor.
We currently have them, so they're kind of a proven.
They have an existing contract with Parks and Rec Department for the grass cutting, and in the past they have done other things as well. And so, yes, we're very familiar with them, and we have complete confidence
That was
that
the
they
other
can handle
part
it.
that made me feel more comfortable with the interim step, is this is a vendor that we've had out, or contractor that's working with us currently, and you guys are comfortable with. But like everything, we have contract or not contract. We're going to continually have to drill down as we go through this budget year, cut the contract short if we need to, put in other measures, or just slim down the work that this contractor will be doing. Like you mentioned, cut back the number of days they're servicing the medians and such to meet our budget requirements.
Yes, sir.
That was all I had. Anybody else from council? Anyone from the public on this? Yeah, item. Councilmember Archambault.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, I just want to commend you guys for constantly looking out, and I know we're in challenging times, and it often takes heroic efforts to try to get things accomplished. Just today, I mean, we saw the press release that the town put out that we've had to furlough 7 employees, or 7 positions.
Not furlough.
I'm sorry, not furlough. We had to eliminate 7 positions, and I know that those are the tough decisions we all have to make. Rick, now that we've been proactive in that particular position, those positions, and not impacting the service that the citizens expect, I'm looking forward to seeing in the near future the comprehensive review of the organization from the top down to reflect the new normal. It seems to be the word that's going around lately, that we are beginning to realize, and to address the challenging drop in revenue structures. So, since we're talking about saving money and we're trying to figure out how to deal with the economy we're at in this particular subject, hopefully you can give us some kind of a time frame when we can look at that proactive approach and deal with it before it becomes a serious issue.
Yeah, and Mayor, Council, as we review our organizational structure of the staffing, there really isn't such a thing in our organization as eliminating a position without some type of impact to level of service. However, as we go forward, we look forward to working with the council through the budgetary process, reviewing again our organization, as you mentioned, and I think we're clear in our understanding, and I think you are also, that this is going to take, as the last move that we just made did, is going to take a comprehensive and a teamwork approach to making sure that we're in the shape and the condition to face the next decade going forward. This isn't going to be a unilateral decision. This is going to be a community decision on what to do. So I'm looking forward to that process too.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Dickey.
On that note, and thank you, Mayor Andrew, indulge me, but you said it's a team effort, and I think it's a team effort not only with the staff and the people that are in the best position to tell us maybe where we can save, but it's also a team effort on the part of this council, and a unifying force, if that's the word, to get ourselves and our community through this as best as we can. An example of not being unified happened today with the state legislature could not pass the budget bills that they had intended to do, and so now they'll be going back on Monday morning, and I usually try to update you on all of that. There were 4 budget bills in the House and the Senate, and they are to be identical so that they can switch them and get through it quickly. And that was to have happened today, but they didn't have enough votes for that. And I also wanted to just mention the effects on the cities aren't as, we're not as entwined in what's going on right now. There's some VLT stuff, but I think it's for people who pay 4 or 5 years of their car registration at once. So I think that it has not quite the same effect as some of the things we talked about in the past, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but I just wanted to update you on that too. That's what's been going on today.
The legislature. All right, do you have another item?
Yeah, just one question on this particular item. When you go forward in the new contracts, one of the things, we're obviously experiencing, the economy, and that's what happened with Nichols and Sons. It's unfortunate. Will staff be weighing the financial viability of the different firms that are bidding before you recommend one to us? Is that going to be one of the weighted factors?
Mayor and council,
Or is that something we can do?
well,
I'll take this one, Tom.
we,
Mayor and
Thank
Councilmember Archambault, we have in other communities we represent modified all of our form documents, particularly ones like this that are hard bid items, to include a component of the evaluation as financial fitness, because this is becoming more and more of a challenge to ensure that you'll get through your full contract year without having to have a replacement. And I know that it is a touchy subject, but it's also one that saves the municipalities a considerable amount of money if they do it on the front end.
Thank you for being proactive on that, Andrew. Thank you, Tom.
Any other comments on the amendment? Thanks, Tom, and, of course, it is a difficult economy. Probably had a big role in Nichols and Son, who served us for a number of years, probably quite well and around the community, so wish the best to them and their employees as well.
thank you, Mayor.
All right. Next item, council request, recent activities of the town manager. Rick, anything?
No, Mayor.
You're going to come back to us with a look on the restructuring of the organization?
Yeah, that will take place as part of our budget discussions, and I again look forward to going through that process with you.
The, regarding the budget, and obviously we started the budget discussions in the executive committee a month after we got adopted this year's budget for next year's budget. And so the executive committee has outlined that we're, obviously going to have discussions as we meet jointly in the coming months to speak to budgetary items all together as well.
Mayor and Council, one of our objectives as we go forward, I remember one time talking to a doctor about cures for cancer, and he says, well, all cancer is curable as long as you don't mind killing the patient. And in this kind of situation, every budget deficit is curable and fillable as long as you don't mind losing the organization. So one of the things that we focus on is maintaining the organizational viability, our ability to keep on providing services at a very high level even when this particular season is over. And I think we understood, you may want to make some comments about the speaker this morning. This has been seen before. We know we will emerge out of this. We're a very resilient nation and community, and when it does, we want to make sure that we're there ready to answer the call, provide services to our residents. So as we go forward with some of these restructurings and these cuts, the eye needs to also be on sustainability of the community as an organization. And so care has to be taken how you do these things. And so just a word on that. I think that's very important to keep remembering as a team as we move forward. We want to keep our organization intact, but we also want to right-size it and restructure it for the new decade ahead of us.
And what we'll continue, I know from evidencing this latest reduction in force here and elimination of positions here, as we had to do last year as well, and closing out of open positions as well last year, is that the process that is equally important is to go through with respect and dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, particularly when you're dealing with personnel, and I think our staff does a great job with that. There's certainly a process you need to stick to, and we're fortunate to have a good staff to help us through that, particularly Joan when HR and the legal staff within our personnel, the folks we call in for personnel issues. So it's unfortunate to have to call upon or consider any of these things, but we certainly live in a new time, and that's going to be necessary as we move forward. But not a great day here at Town Hall. We're going to miss the staff that whose positions were eliminated, and wish them the best, of course, as well. But the process was one we can be proud of, and being honest with the community and the staff at our town meeting, staff meeting today, they understand the budget challenges the council and leadership at the town staff will have over the next couple of years. So the process is very important to go through in an appropriate manner. But thanks for getting some hard work done here, and look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.